Hey, y'all, we're going to talk about the next chapter. This is going to be the call of Abram. I think this is an exciting chapter. This is chapter 12, and it's going to give us another beginning. Remember when we first started our study that this was going to be a book of beginnings? Genesis has many, many, many beginnings, and here we're seeing the call of what we're going to have as a patriarch of our faith, of God's chosen people. So Genesis 1 and 2, we see God's creating a home for mankind. Chapter 3 introduces us to sin. Chapter 4 expands that sin. And so we see peoples who are operating as individuals, right? Until we get to Noah and he comes off of the ark, God's going to start creating a group of people and a group of nations, and those nations are going to eventually be dispersed. But here we have Abram being called to start being the leader, the patriarch of these nations, as God is going to continue to call people together to be that one holy nation, that one chosen people. So let's see what we're looking at here. We have a map here, and I wanted to kind of point out, this is the map of our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they're basically traversing the same land over and over and over again. So why is that important? Because this land is important. There has been fights over this land for millennia. This is one of those pieces of property that everybody wants a piece of. So I wanted to bring this map to your attention because it shows us the paths of our forefathers. So let's jump into our scriptures, and there's a lot of scriptures here today. So this is verses 1 to 9. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your kindred, your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and to him who dishonors you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram went, and as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed for Haran. Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. So when they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land at the place of Shechem to the oak of Moreh. And at that time, the Canaanites were in the land. These are the people from Canaan. The Lord appeared to Abram and he said, to your offspring, I will give this land. So he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there, he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he made an altar to the Lord. So we see Abram finishing up his journey on the way to the Negev. So he builds an altar and he decides he's going to journey on to the Negev. Let's see what the Hebrew has to say. I love introducing y'all to Hebrew because I think there's a lot of powerful information here. So we're going to start with this phrase, now the Lord said to Abram. Abram means exalted father, and Sarai's name means princess. So we have this phrase that opens us up to this chapter. Now the Lord said to Abram. Remember the vav back in our first part of the Genesis study with creation? We have that vav. The vav is a connector. It looks like a nail or a tent peg. Well, this is connecting us to what just happened in the previous chapter. So this is a continuation of sorts. So get used to seeing the vavs. I want you to start pointing them out in your study, because when you see the vavs, they're connecting you to something. So Abram is being called, but who all went with him? Who was supposed to go on the journey? So let's look at chapter 7 of Acts, verses 2 to 5, and we'll find out some additional information. Stephen said, brothers and fathers, hear me. The glory of God appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran, and said to him, go out from your land, from your kindred, to your land, from the land of your kindred, and go into the land that I will show you. So he goes out from the land of Chaldeans and he lived in Haran. After his father died, God removed him from there and into this land which you are now living. This was a promise that Abraham's children would have this land. And the promise wasn't that Abram would have the land, but his children and his offspring would have the land. So the question I got to pondering is, was it crucial to the journey of Abram and Abram's calling that Terah go on this journey to Canaan? Was Terah called to go on this journey to Canaan, or was it just Abram that was supposed to go and Terah and Lot just kind of tagged along? Abram had to be the patriarch here, not Terah. Notice that Nahor did not come either. He stayed back and he did not come on this journey even to Haran. I think it's interesting to think about that God is calling us sometimes and just us, and that could be a scary thing. And then sometimes people come along on our journey that are supposed to be there, and then we have people who aren't supposed to be on our journey and they kind of just tag along, right? Chapter 11, verse 31 says that Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his grandson, Sarai, the daughter-in-law, and Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of Chaldeans into the land of Canaan. When they came to Haran, they stopped and they settled there. So I think it's a good pause here to wonder about, did Terah have to stay back? I mean, did Terah have to die in order for Abram to complete this journey? And I think that he was called to leave his father's house, his father's land, his father's everything, into something God was going to show him. And it just had to be Abram right now. And so I think that's why they stopped in Haran before they actually got to the land of Canaan. And Terah was not supposed to be part of this journey. We'll talk about in a little bit about Lot, whether or not he was supposed to be part of this journey. Your word study was for country. Country can mean a couple of different things. It could mean the earth, the land, the ground, the soil, but it can also mean people, right? They're from the country of India or the country of this. So Abram was told to leave everything. He was supposed to leave his home, his family, his legacy, his support system, his comfort, and possibly his inheritance. But look at the exchange, what he was going to get. There's a 7-part promise here. He was going to be a great nation after his line by God, blessings from God. He was going to have a great name by God. He was going to be a blessing to others. He was going to bless those who blessed Abram. God was going to curse those who cursed Abram. And the whole earth was going to be blessed by Abram's legacy. We're told that Lot just comes along and that Abram is 75 at this time. So we know Abram does not have any children. We know that Abram is going to have offspring, but we are not sure what that's going to look like right now. Abram is a little advanced in years. His wife is also a little advanced in years. And maybe Abram is just thinking that Lot's going to be my adopted son. And through the line of Lot, I'm going to be able to get children and blessings and all that good stuff. So let's look to see what Lot actually means. Lot has a very unique looking name. He has a couple of unique things I want to point out. Lot means covering. That first character that looks kind of like a little camel, that is your Lamed. It's a symbol of learning, particularly heart learning. What's in your heart? Remember we talked about Lev and the heart and how it's really all of your will, all of your intentions, all of what you want to happen, not an emotion, but where is my will and my thoughts being directed here? That next little letter is your Vav. The dot on top makes this an O, so it's a hole in Vav, so it gives you that O for the Lot sound. This is that hook and that connector, and this is the number of man. Vav is the 6th character, and it's often referred to as the number of man. So we have a man with particularly heart knowledge of some sort, not sure if it's good or bad. So that last letter that looks like a weird V kind of thing, that is a Tate, and it's a least used letter for the letter T. So we get LOT here. And it can represent the two natures of man. It can represent that there's this duality here of wanting to do good, wanting to act righteously, but also wanting to rebel. So it's like a battle of wills, so to speak. So you have, his name literally means heart knowledge, man's heart knowledge in rebellion or in righteousness to God, that's in conflict. So that's what his name means. And we're going to see in a place in scripture that it means he's righteous when he does leave Sodom and Gomorrah. But we see in our next study that he's going to overlook the Jordan Valley and make a very critical decision of where he's going to land. So think about Lot in this dual character of trying to decide if he's going to be rebellious or if he's going to be righteous towards God. You also had a word study on call on the name of the Lord. And this was a lot of different pieces coming together. Call was one number. It was 7121. Kara, it means to call, cry, utter a sound, call for help, or call on God. Shem is the name. Remember, we talked about the name. And the Lord here is Yehovah, which is the Yud He Vav He. And this is a very interesting word because it means God. It's the best translation we can come up with for the name of God, because God is so much more than just a singular name, right? But when you see the Yud He and the Vav He in Yehovah, it's like you're breathing in a breath and you're breathing out his spirit. So it's like Yehovah, Yehovah. You're breathing in and breathing out the very presence of his spirit when we're saying that word. A word study here also may have led you to Genesis 4:26, Genesis 6:1, and Genesis 11:8. So we're going to look at calling on the name of the Lord versus profaning the name. We have seen 3 profanings in scripture so far. And now we see someone calling on the name of the Lord. They are crying out to Yehovah. And I love that imagery. I love that juxtaposition of the world is profaning, we should be calling. Love that difference. And we're going to see that a little bit later in the next chapter. So this kind of gives you the journey of Abram. He's moving over here in the Ur of Chaldees, all the way up to Haran, all the way down. He comes through the land of Canaan onto the Negev, onto the land of Egypt. So Abram takes Sarah, Lot, all their stuff, all their people, all their everything, and they set out for the land of Canaan. So when they come to the land of Canaan, they pass through a place called Shechem, and there's the oak of Moreh there, or a terebinth tree. We see this word terebinth tree a few times in scripture. But when he gets there, he decides he is going to build an altar. And I love that he's going to build this altar to the name of the Lord. And he is going to make this a memorial place. This is going to be a place of memorial. And God is going to use Abram. Remember, we're all moving towards nations. He's going to move Abram into a land that is going to be for his offspring. Right now, there's people in it. And so verse 7, the Lord appears to Abram and tells him, all of this land is going to be yours. Well, I would be kind of confused if I was Abram, because I've come through the land and it's like, well, Lord, I know what you said and I believe what you said, but there's all these people here. What's going to happen to all of these people, right? But God is faithful, and he works with Abram's knowledge of him at the time, and he works with his faith, and he just continues to bless Abram on this journey. And I think he is going to really give us a clue here in this verse 7, if we look at the chiastic of what's going to happen with this land. The middle part of verse 7 is, to your offspring, I'm going to give you this land. He's not asking Abram to do anything. He's saying, Abram, I'm going to give you this land to your people. No strings attached. We don't see God telling Abram to do anything but go. And Abram goes. But God is going to be so faithful, and he's just going to give him this land because of his faith. We had to do a little mini word study on this word altar. Altar is Miss B, and it means to just basically humble yourself before the Lord. You're going to make an altar many, many times in scripture. You're going to see Abram in the next study. He's going to come back through Bethel, make another altar. And I love how we have altars in scripture, but do we have altars in our life? Do we have these remembrances of God did this wonderful thing here? God made a promise to me here, and I set this time and space aside as an altar. Now, you may not build an altar like the one on the screen, of course not, because people would probably think you're crazy. But you can remember something by me journaling it and writing it down. This moment in my life, God was faithful. I'm going to remember this moment. Or God came through on such a marvelous move of his hand that only he could have worked this circumstance out. I'm going to remember this time. So when times get tough, I will come back to those altars and remember the goodness of God. That's what these altars actually mean. Abram continues on his journey to the Negev, and this is kind of where things go a little haywire, right? So now there's a famine in the land, and basically there's this issue with not enough food. So he decides that he is going to go down to Egypt or Mizraim. Remember, this is one of the sons, and we're going to see Abram's going to sojourn, and we're going to see some things happen. Okay. And they're not going to always be good things. So they're going down to this land, and Abram's going, hey, look, you know, you are pretty. You're just the prettiest thing I've ever seen. And when we get to Egypt, these people are going to go crazy over you. So you're going to have to just say you're my sister. Because if you tell them you're my wife and they realize that I'm the husband, well, they're going to kill me, and they're going to take you and do whatever. But hey, they're going to kill me. It's going to be really, really bad. So we're just going to come up with this story, and we are going to just go, hey, you're my sister, right? So she goes along, and sure enough, when they get into Egypt, they go, wow, she is so pretty. We're going to take her right on into Pharaoh, and we're going to put her in Pharaoh's house, and all's going to be well, right? Wrongo. Abram does his little deal. They get Sarah into the house of Pharaoh, but what happens? Yep, the plagues come. So Pharaoh realizes, hey, wait a minute. There is something wrong here. Last one in, I don't know if they realized because Sarah came in, now there's plagues, or if the ladies were talking and maybe they somehow slipped the word to Pharaoh that, hey, they're really married. Somehow Pharaoh realizes there's an injustice here. And he says, what have you done to me? You've lied to me. She's your wife. What is all this about? And so he goes, well, I was afraid, right? He had to have some kind of justification. And so Abram is able to take Sarai and leave, but all the things that they were given in her exchange for the dowry, they get to take too. So God, because Pharaoh's acting righteously here, he could not lay with Sarai because that was not right. And he realized there's something wrong here. So because he acted faithfully to a God he didn't even know, Abram gets still some blessings. And Pharaoh's house is spared all of these plagues. So my question is, God is calling us. So what is God calling you to do? We answer our phones all day long, right? On text, or on voicemails, or on emails, or on Messenger, TikTok, whatever we're communicating with. But have you ever picked up the line and asked God, hey, what do you want me to do today? God is calling you to do something. And the sooner you find out what God's calling you to do, the sooner you will realize there is such blessing in that calling. There's such equipping in that calling. And you may not be able to leave your father's house, all your stuff, without that reassurance from God. Maybe you're afraid. I would be afraid too. Sometimes God calls us to things we can't understand, we can't comprehend, but we just say, yes, Lord, I'll go. And in that walking out of that faith, God equips us. God prepares our feet, prepares our hands for the work ahead. He prepares the way. So as we wrap up today, I want you to ponder, what is God calling you to do today? Pick up the phone, answer that call.